is an object-oriented. Object-oriented programming is a very important part. You can find that in exam and everywhere, even in the choices on true and falses. So you should have information. You should have both information about everything and how to do this one. How to create a class, how to inherit, how, and information about everything. So if we just start from the beginning, from scratch right here, that if you have a class like this, you know for sure this is not abstract. I would not go with abstract right now. So it's a class. This is called a concrete class. Listen to me. This is called a concrete class. And by concrete class, we mean this class we can create objects from. Inside the class, you have two parts, two members. Class consists of two members, variables and methods. And by variables, the ordinary variables, you know, integer, float, double, string, and so on. And you can give it a modifier like if it's public or private or so on. So for example, we have a private x equal 10, for example, and we have a public y which equal 20, for example. So this is one private variable, and another one is a public variable. Okay? I forget the modifier. This is integer, and this is, for example, double here. So I have two variables, and I can have as many variables as you know as I want. And it's not only for private and public, but you can include protected and unidentified, as you know that. So this is the first part of the class. You should have some variables. And if you have some variables, this class name is train. The class name is train. And these are the variables of the class. You can at any time create an object of the class. How can I create an object of this class? Simply I say the class name here, and I give the name of my object. Let's say my object is OP, like this, or A. It's equal new. It's a keyword for creating a new object, and the name of the class here, like this. That means I'm creating a new object A of type train. So it have all the properties of train. A will have these variables as its variables. Okay? So you can access, if you have A, you can access those variables. Like you can say system.out.print A.x, for example. Right? So A as an object of train can access those variables x and y. So if you run that, you would have here 10, which is the value of x. And even x is a private, and I will not today talk about modifiers, but here's a hint. There's a video, and I encourage you to watch this video about the modifiers. But here, even x is a private, but still the object can access x. Why? Because this object is created inside the class. So I created this object inside the class of train, so it has access to all variables, private, public, protected, and everything. This is a site. So this here, how can I create object? Another very important thing, member of the class is called methods. So the class can have or can have many methods, as much as I want. And by method I mean something looks like a function. So it's, can you give it like public or private or whatever you want? And what the method will return. If it returns something, if it returns something, so you brought it to your integer, that means it will return something. And for example, this is the name of the function, the method, and inside this process you put here, inside here, the variable that you pass to the method. So in general, we talked about that, but in general, to remind you, this looks like a function, and the function consists of, in between here, what you pass to the function, what you send to the function. And here, this is the type of the variable that will return from the function, that will result from the function. And you give this process. Inside here, you can write the method as you want. Okay? So, I'm inside here. What's the problem here? Oh yeah, so this is okay. So that's for now. That's mean I have this this sum, and let's say I would like this method to do a very simple thing, just sum x plus y. I can say just return x plus y, and that's it. That's mean this one will return the variable of x plus y. And x plus y is not an integer. That's why he complained, because I have this like double. So I don't like, so again, why he's complaining here? Because x plus y would not return an integer, turn on double. So just even to change this one to integer or change this one to double. Yes. Convert what? Double to integer or what? How can you convert integer to double?
No,
Or
because like in this case, like you had
it doesn't do that automatically. So if you have integer plus double, what is the result? A compiler, what is the result is double. So, and you said here this function or this method return integers. So that's why he complained. If I change that to integer, he is not complaining. If I remain this double and change this one to double, he will not complain. And that's it. Yes.
we have to know like different cast rules.
No. You don't have to do that. You don't have to know that. So that's for now. Let's be focused here. This is, you can, as long as, guys, you are inside the class, you can say that, x plus y. And a very important thing, you have to know very well that you can simply say this dot x, right? And this dot y. What's the meaning of this? Do you know that? Very important thing you have to know. This is a keyword refer to the current class. So this inside the class mean our current class, our train. Okay? And what is this can access? If you see that here, if I come here and said this, and I said here, dot, it come here the variable that this can access. It can access x and can access y because it's returned to the current class. So it's up to you. You can use this dot x, this dot y, but if you are out, if you're inside the class, you can simply use x and y. So what information we said right now? We have a class. The class has a name. It has a variable like this. It can has methods. It can return something here. I can create an object from the class. I can use the keyword this. Okay? So if I run that, I can call here, which means calling the method. I can call here sum. So I said a dot sum. And that's mean I'm calling this sum. If I calling this sum, the compiler will go directly to the method sum. What sum will do? Just adding x plus y. And x is 10 and y is 20. So what's happening here? It gave me 30, which is 10 plus 20. And a very important question here. Can I change these variables for object A? Yes, I can. I can set a dot x equal 30 and a dot y equal 40. So now 30 and 40 are the values of x and y of object A, sorry. So if I run that now, I get here 70. So a new information comes now. I can access using the object the variables I have. And the variables I have here, I can change as much as I want and update its value and rerun that. But be aware, if I created here another class, let's say this train2 is consistent of what? So let's see, come here. Another class here. This is another class inside the same package. This is train2 here, just beside train, inside the same package of test2. inside this class main here, can I create an object of that class, of train class? Yeah, so I can say like this, train P equal new train. So I can create object even in another class of another object. But here, can I access the variables of train? What are the variables of train? X and Y. But X is private and Y is public. Can I access both of them? No. If I said B dot, you would find here Y only is available. Why Y is available? This is very important because Y I created as public. But private cannot be accessed from outer this class, only inside this class. And this drives us to a very important question. How can I change private variables from out of the class? How can I change private variables? Yes, you have answer? Yes, for sure. What else? Get and setter? So, I have a video too on a channel. It's called Getter and Setter. There's a video on channel, listen to me, called Getter and Setter. What's the meaning of Getter and Setter? You put methods inside the class to get and set private values because I cannot from other classes access private variables. So I create Getter and Setter. What is Getter and Setter? Yeah.
Are get and set keywords, or are they just like properly?
No, it's not a keyword. It's a strategy.
So it's just like basically like a method.
Yeah, method. Call it whatever you want. But we call it as a like function set. Okay, how can I create setter, for example? Let's get a quick example here. How can I create set here? Just a method, public. I call it whatever I want, but usually we call it set underscore x. So I have a setter for each element. What is the type of set? What's the type of x here? It's integer. So it should accept integer anything. Let's call f. Should set return anything? No, it will set a value only. It will not return anything. So here you get it void here because it will not return anything. And inside set you simply do nothing, just put the value of f inside x. So you set this dot x equal f. So this is indirect process I can use to access the private x. So here in train 2, if I save that here and go to train 2, I can do b dot set x and I send here 10. So this 10 will go to where? Will go to x because I cannot directly access x, so I create this set. So you have to focus, listen to me, you have to focus on how to deal with setter and getter. What is getter, guys? The same here, public. Call it whatever you want. It's called getX. It should have two functions for every single private value. And it accept nothing and it return the type. So that's only will read that return this dot x. Okay, so if I came here, I find a problem here. So what's the problem right here? Help me. It is called train. But I should have access this one here, public here. I don't have a constructor here. Do I have a constructor here? I don't have a constructor. So why it's complaining? So if I set x here and then p dot get x here, let's do that inside system dot out dot print. Okay, so what's going to happen here? If I have a value, I have 10. What happens here? I created an object P in another class, and I set a value of x to 10, and I read this value to send that to x and get it back from here. I can change that to 20, for example. and it would have 20 here. So no problems for that. But you have to go in details through the video of setter and getter. Why we use setter and getter for every single private parameter? Because we have no access to private from out of this class. So we deal with setter and getter. Yeah, so another thing to talk about in object-oriented here, which is a very important, something called constructor. Very important. Every single class has a constructor, which is a default. So by default, any class has its constructor. You don't need to do it if you don't want to. So if you don't do any constructor, the default constructor will initialize any numeric value that is not initialized to 0. So if I remove that here, just remain as x, and I add another one public string y. Okay, so what's the problem with the string here? Oh, it's y, sorry. Help me, guys. Okay, so I remove that. When I created an object here, I don't need this. So let's see here. I don't have a constructor here inside my class. But if I came at any time and said a.x just to print out the value of x, and you run that here, you would have it 0. That means this x, which is not initialized, I did not initialize it, but the default constructor do initialize it to 0. If I try to access L, which is a string here, it's by default will have the value of null, nothing. So that default constructor initialize all the variables of the class. Any numeric value will be initialized to 0. Any string value will be initialized to null. If I would like to do my own constructor, how can I do that? Yeah, I even need to do public, I think. So I can just say train like this. So the constructor is a method that has the same name like the class name. And you can put here inside it a variable like integer x, for example, and integer y. And inside that, you just do this dot x equal x. Let's say this is x1 to make a difference. And this dot y equal y1. Let's call it this y1. This constructor has the same name like the name of the class and will initialize if you want. If you don't want, it's okay. If you want to do that, or I ask you in exam to do that, you have to do that. To create the value. Just a second, please.
Can you have default values inside of your parameters? Like Python to do that?
No. And here, guys, very important thing. From just some seconds away, we talked about how to do set and get for private. Is constructor be able to solve this problem? So before we say that, we said a constructor here. But take care, if you create an object, when you create an object, you have to pass to the object if you're creating the variable of constructor. So a constructor here has 2 integers. You have to send 10 and 20 here when you create an object. So every time you create an object, if you have a constructor in your class, you have to send the parameters of this object. So now x will be 10 even from here. If you have an object like this, you have 20 and 30. So I don't need to set x. I don't need to do that. If I run that here, I don't need to set x. I set it as 10 as it's 10. So I can use a constructor instead of set x. But what about get x? I will have it. I don't have any other option. So just aside, set x, we said if you don't have a private, if you have a private and we would like to access, we create a function or a method set and a method get for every single private. I can deal with that if I have a constructor. What is constructor? I have two types of constructor. Default constructor, when I don't create anything, I don't do anything, it will initialize all the variables, numeric to 0 and null to the string ones. If you would like to create an constructor, you can create an constructor and you don't have to initialize all the value. As you can see here, I'm just initializing x and y and I ignored L, and I can do that. I can allow my constructor to initialize set of variables available. So I have 3 variables here, but I'm just asking my constructor to initialize 2. And the remaining one will go with the default constructor to null. Okay? So this is what about constructor. But if you create a constructor inside your class, you be aware that when you create a new object here, you must send the same parameters like here. So that's for the constructor. Yeah, so a last thing I have to say about object here, that you can have something called static variable. You can have something called static variable. And what static variables mean? Static variable mean this variable will belong to train, to the class, not to the object. This variable will belong to the class, not the object. This is very important, and I will not create an example here. You have examples in the videos talking about that. What is static? Static in general is belong to the class train and not belong to the object I create. Okay, so let's say, what does mean? If I have an object like this, so I would delete this constructor here. And I would create 2 objects, A and B. Let me find what is the value of x here. Let's go with not static first. I would say a.x equal 20 and b.x equal 30. What does that mean? So x here is not static. That means for every object there is a copy of x. So x that belong to A is equal 20 and x that belong to B is equal 30. Let me just output that. If I run that, I would have 20 and 30. The one belong to A, the one belong to B. If I came here and said a.x equal a.x plus 30, what does that mean? So x belongs to A is, this is very important. X belongs to A is 20. X belongs to B is 30. And I changed the value of x that belong to A. What is the value of this output of this one here? It is changed to 20 plus 30, it will be 50. And the other is remaining 30. No effect here. Because it's 2 different objects. 2 different copies of x. But if this one is static, that means any change to it will affect all. So a.x equal 20 and b of x equal 30. What is the last value of x? 30. And if I create that, what's happening here? It comes to 60 and 60. Why? Because first time I define x to 20. Then I change it to 30. Regardless of the object, do that because it's static. So the last value of it is 30. Then I increase it by 30. So it becomes 60 for both because it doesn't belong to any of them. It belongs to the class. Any change of it affects all. It's very important aside here. So that's for class. Okay, let me go to another thing here, which called the inheritance. So I will remove all of that here. I will remove this and remove this. I have, very quick, very important, because there's not a lot of time here. How can I create or inherit a class from another class? What is the meaning of inheritance? Inheritance mean I have a parent, or sometimes we call a sober class, or sometimes we call base class, and I should have a child or derived class from this class. So I can create another class here, let's say class child, but I should use extends. This is a keyword to know what's extend class from. So here that's mean I have a child class extend the parent class. What that gonna do? If I have the child class from this parent class of this subclass from sober class or derived class from base class, all the same meaning. That's mean any object of child can have access to all variables of this one except the private. So for example, if I came here and create an object train A, or let's call it T equal new train. Very important question you have to know and answer now. This object T, let's say I have a public integer f, for example, in this child class. This object T has access to what? This object T is a parent. It has access to all the variables that belong to it. If I created another class of child, C equal new child. What does that mean? Is a child C capital or small? Small. So I have an object of the child. Generally, the child class has access to all his variables and all the variables of his parent except the private. So let's see that. If you said C, which is a child, dot, how many variables you can see here? F. What is F? It's his variable and has access to L. What's L? It's a public variable of his parent and has access to Y. What's Y? It's a public variable of his parent, but it has no access to X, which is a private, regardless of static or not. So C has no access to X, which is not public or protected or anything. So in general, the child class would have access to every variables here inside his class and all the variables of his parent except the private can have access to protected and anything. Yes.
One of the things I had trouble with during the semester is the difference between a child class and an abstract class.
Yeah, we'll talk about abstract class. So abstract class is a totally different from child class. So child class, this child class here could be inherited or be a child of a concrete class, a symbol class, any class, not only the abstract. You don't have to be abstract class. This is very important. Class doesn't have to be abstract to have child. You can have children from any class. And children, as I said, yes. Yeah, you can do that. No, you haven't do that. You cannot put abstract methods inside concrete class.
No, I know, but like if we have like an abstract class and we're extending like a child from that abstract class, it has to have all the same methods.
No, you have the method that is abstracted only.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. But the other methods that implemented do not have to be extended, re-implemented. You know that? So if you have abstract class and you have a method, for example, called print, and you have another method which is abstract called get. So in child, you have to implement get, which was abstract over there. But the one that was public and implemented, you don't have to re-implement that.
It's only abstract methods.
Yeah, only abstract methods. So now, guys, here, if you have a child here, so the child cannot access private. This is very important here. And by the way, listen to that. Look at that. And the parent class, which is D, has no access to any variable of its child. So what's the relation between child and parent? Child can access whatever inside parent except private. Parent can access all of his variable but cannot look at child. This is very important. Listen to that many times. And you can, by the way, create an object of parent and child together. So look, train, mix, equal new, child. Look. So this one is of type train, of type parent, but it's an object of the child. This is a mix. And in this way, this mix here would have access to the private here of this class. Okay, so again, child C have access to everything here and here except the private. Child T have access to everything here, but have no access to his child. Child mix or mix class, which is of type train and child, have access to everything inside here except included the private. Okay, so you can do that. What else? You can have a function which is a very important question here. Let's see here a method called public sum. Let's call it return integer again. And this sum will do this dot x plus this dot y. And I can have here a child, public integer sum. And this will do this dot f, for example, multiplied by this dot y. So now I have, what's important here? Oh, sorry. Should return. So now I come to a very important concept here, guys. Listen to me, please. This is very important. A very important concept we talked about is called override. Override. What's the meaning of override? Override means I can have the same method with the same name in a parent class and in a child class. Same method, same name, but different functionality. Let's do another function here. Let's do multiplication. So override means I can have method twice. One is in parent and one in child, or anywhere. Have the same name but different functionality. This is called override. But the problems here come if you do something like this. And you have to answer that with me. System.out.print T.sum. Which one will be executed? So here I did T.sum. Which one will be executed? This first one, right? Why? Because it belongs to the parent. So it will x, let's say x equal 10 and y equal 20. And here let's say f equal 10. So if I run that, I would have 30, which is 10 plus 20. So what that means, this one is executed. If I change this one to C, so C.sum, this is I'm now calling the method of the child, not the method of the parent. So this one will be executed now. Run. You have 200, which is 10 multiplied by 20. This is very clear. But what happens if I have mix here like this? Mix is a mixed class from parent and child. Which one will be called? Are you expecting which one? If I run that, you would find 200, which means the child method is executed. And that's why this is really a train type, but it's an object of child. So mix called the method of the child. This is called overriding. Very important concept. Overriding. Very important concept. Again, overriding. So if you have a child and parent. So another concept is overriding is called overloading. And I will not talk about overloading now, but you have to to read about that. Overloading is the same like overriding. You have two methods, but it should have two different names. Same name, but different signature, I mean. Okay, so let's stop here.